Hello. So we're here. I'm here with Know Thy Enemy, and we are going to discuss today the Knights Templar and the Cathars. So, looking at what happened after what we believe was the millennial reign on Earth. So, from 1,000 years, from around 66 AD to 1066 AD, we believe there was a millennial reign on Earth that was a beautiful, peaceful time. That maybe was a dark age for someone who was hidden away, and that the footnotes of the 1599 Bible give us the confirmation that we need. And after that, the Crusades, the Inquisitions all stepped in to try and wipe out this way of living, this belief system that was prevalent during the Millennial Kingdom. So I think we just want to touch on the 1599 footnotes, because I think this is what's been hidden. So recently, in across Europe, we now don't have access to Bible Gateway. I did manage to get it on my computer earlier, actually, but I don't know if it's just a phone thing. But if you're looking at the footnotes of the 1599 Bible, it says in Revelation that effectively Satan's little season, Revelation 20, starts in the reign of Pope Gregory VII, which describes in the footnotes as a damnable necromancer, sorcerer whom Satan used as an instrument when he was loosed out of bonds to annoy the saints of God with cruel persecutions and bloody wars. In Revelation 9:11, which is where it says that Satan is known as Apollyon or Abaddon, it says, tries to talk into the etymology of Hildebrand, comparing it to firebrand, saying that he setteth on fire those that be faithful unto God. So I think that's very interesting, especially when we think, I sent you this morning, didn't I, that in this TV series Lucifer, his daughter is called Aurora Hildebrand, which is very interesting, and this all sets up. But to go on, it talks in the footnotes to say Emperor Henry IV went about by all manner of treachery to set up and put down empires and kingdoms, as like himself, and doubted not set Rodolph the Sweden over the empire, to miserably set Christendom on fire, and conveyed on to his successors the burning brand of the same, who enraged with like ambition never ceased to nourish the flame, and enkindle it even more, whereby cities, commonwealths, and whole kingdoms, by most expert cutthroats, came to ruin. So these crusading Templars are these expert cutthroats who then even introduce torture, all sorts of horrible torture mechanisms. And the footnotes go on to talk about how this carried on for 150 years. So the destruction of Christendom started at Hildebrand and ends with Gregory IX, Pope Gregory IX, which to his reign was 1227 to 1241, and he effectively created the license to kill across the Christian world. So I think that makes it very clear there was a Christendom of 1,000 years, and we're trying to piece together what happened after the end of the Millennial Kingdom to this point where we got to here, and what it was Rome, effectively, the empire struck back, and what they were trying to wipe out. We've been looking particularly at the Albisengian Crusade, which started in 1209. So that wiped out the Cathars. So I don't know if you want to go on and explain who the Cathars are and what their belief system is.
Okay, so I just want to also mention, you mentioned that there in Revelation, I think it was 20, including the footnote.
Yep.
It mentioned that that was basically the time where they were reconsecrating, or consecrating at the time, new structures and buildings and so on, including cutthroats, which were the Knights Templar and all of that as well. Now, if you think of that, okay, and who that main figure was, and you think of the millennial reign being up until 1066, right? Millennial era was 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So if you think of that basically took me in the form of King Solomon. Okay, he was also a great, what you would call wizard or druid or so on.
Yeah.
But he had apparently been given this ring that could control these entities. So I don't know if he controlled them for over 1,000 years, or what the case was, or he just locked them away for 1,000 years. Because it states that the brass flask that these entities were pushed into, and then apparently chased into an abyss of some sort,
I
at
think sometimes
Mount.
it's if going into the sea, found by fishermen or something.
I'm not sure, but apparently in the Keys of Solomon, the reason why the Knights Templar was also made was to find King Solomon's artifacts, including this brass flask with the 72 great, by great I mean the main bad entities. It was locked away, it was hidden away for over 1,000 years. Now, ironically so, the millennial era was 1,000 years. Soon as they were let loose, apparently they didn't know that it was that the spirits were in there, but it just opened, and ironically these dudes just came flying out. Now, between 1066 and 1209, it was 1208.
1209 was the
That
Albisengian Crusades. 1209,
okay, so
1090 was the start of the first crusade.
1099 was basically when the Templars were trained and set to their path.
Yeah.
Along with the Pope. With this Pope, Innocent III, he was apparently also the Bishop of Rome. Now let that also sink in. He was the Bishop of Rome. He wasn't just a Pope. He was the Bishop of Rome. And you know how big Rome was. So after that, he decided to set up it was 1209. He set up the Albigensian Crusade, and that was West France. Was it southern France?
Southern France.
Okay, so the Albigensian Crusade was the west of France, and they went against the south of France. Okay. Now,
But I think the
this is
Templars
based.
were in the area at the time. I think they actually had quite a lot of. They effectively owed their expansion in part to the wealthy families of this region, the Languedoc region. So they started.
Oh, I thought you were carrying on there. Okay, so this is also a very interesting thing that I also wanted to mention. You know how they used to know who these people were?
Mm-hmm.
These were generally from the Pope's side, okay, and the Crusade, the Templars themselves. They used to say, "Bless you." You know how weirdly that is interesting, because that was never said in the old times.
No.
Before, let's just say 1066. It was never said. You never needed to say that. And this is, or may the Holy Spirit bless you. So it's almost as if it's like trying to resort to something there. But this is generally how the Cathars and the people of the age of that time knew that these people weren't the people that they were looking for. Anyway, so apparently they went to a castle where there were 222 of them rounded up. They rounded up 222 Cathars, okay? and they refused.
Feast day.
They refused them to die. They went against it. So they went and they destroyed everything. A whole 20,000 of them perished.
Yeah.
Due to them not wanting to give up their Cathar priests and so on. So I'm not sure if Mary was involved over there, but she was part of the Cathars. That you can probably find is quite there's quite a few references attaching her to the Cathars, and the, let's just say, the lifestyle that they had at the time, where they didn't eat meat. They lived a pescatarian diet. They didn't believe in marriage. They didn't they didn't kill animals. They didn't harm animals. They were a peaceful. It was almost as if you can see how these crusades started by this Pope after this, let's just say, this flask was popped open and the genies came out of it without needing to rub the flask. They just came rushing out right after that.
Yeah.
All of them. And this is now when you could say going from, in a yin-yang sense, from good to evil, and how it started. Because this is the world that I feel I live in at the moment.
Yeah.
If you look at how wars and all of that is going on, and there was none of this in the millennial kingdom, as far as I remember. Okay, there were some rough times to live in, like the 400s and so on, that we will probably go into in later on videos. But the Crusades themselves, the torture, the methods that they used, these don't seem like good people at all.
Well, they asked Pope Innocent III how they knew who was kind of good and bad, and he just said, "Kill everyone, and God can figure out who's his and who's not." And they looked at, so I think there was
From
6,
peaceful,
7,000. Yeah.
From peaceful to that, just
kill
take
everyone.
them all out. If they don't die, then yeah, God is definitely looking after them, and all of them died.
7,000 of them saw sanctuary in Mary Magdalene's church in Béziers.
In Mary Magdalene, okay, so in Mary Magdalene's church.
Yeah, and
not just some whatever church.
Yeah, and they burnt them alive in there.
Alive.
I think the Cathars not only, they actively were in complete opposition to what the Catholic Church was doing, and the wealth gathering, the banking system that the Templars are setting up. They were the Robin Hood, giving to the poor. Anything they got, they would give away, compared to the Templars created this banking system where you could put your gold in London and you could extract it in Jerusalem. That was like the start of the entire capitalist banking system. And they were in direct opposition to that. Which, yeah, I mean, they were promised, the Crusaders were promised unconditional entry to heaven, and they were encouraged to use extreme brutality, as if the popes have the ability to decide who gets into heaven.
Sorry, I just broke up there for a second, but yeah, I kind of missed a little bit of that. So apparently,
sorry.
No, so carry on.
Just the Cathars actively welcomed women into worship, which is obviously diametrically opposed to the very patriarchal system of single men only are able to put you in touch with the divine. They also believed in eventually that there was a demiurge. They were dualistic, so they believed there was an evil god of this world, which is throughout the New Testament, and that the real God only created the spiritual realm, and that effectively Satan, demiurge created this material world, and they believed in reincarnation, that there was kind of this soul trap process going on, trapping us in, and that, yeah.
So it's basically a form of Buddhism, Hinduism, and the East, very like the East of Europe kind of beliefs that we have now.
Yeah.
So
it started in Bosnia, I think.
Yeah, so this is pretty interesting. Why that's still a thing. Maybe they just put certain figures where it was probably the belief of Mary that made it so important for them to want to destroy their belief system, the things that they believed, in peace, because that was the way of peace, if I'm not mistaken, the way they lived.
Well, I think what they wanted
from the millennial
destroy
era.
They were so well organized, and they were getting it was spreading quite considerably, even without the wealth. And that's what they wanted to destroy, the kind of root of the organization, rather than necessarily allowing small sects to have that belief system. But the spreading was of this quite organized group, the Cathars, in this region of France, which is obviously heavily linked with Mary. I think that's what they wanted to destroy, not the kind of concept, because I mean, otherwise they'd have wiped out all of the Eastern religions. There's something about this belief system which is rooted in something from Christendom that they wanted to
Probably
destroy.
because it was probably because of who Mary actually was and her lifestyle, probably. Because, I mean, calling her Lady of the Night, which you probably understand what that means in other terms, I just don't want to call her that because I have a lot of respect for Mary herself. So I wouldn't want to say that in her name. And her belief system and what she did for the people. I think because Rome, let's just say Rome and the popes and the Inquisitions was basically set to take her image and put it into religion, because religion is not the same as this lifestyle they had. They wanted more control. They didn't want people to have that peace and freedom, so they must fear God.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of living as if, I'm not saying they must live as if they were a god, but I mean peace and enjoyment and all of that. It sounds a lot better than this whole Roman Inquisition thing where, along with the popes, taking over monarchies and all of that, creating a set of control around what we would call Christianity in itself, from the Catholicism side, if it's Catholic, basically breaking it off. We still want to slightly be attached to the Mary thing because there are so many people that had this belief and this lifestyle. Basically changing it over into what we would call a religion. Say again?
I don't think they could wipe out the evidence of this effectively Mary worship. So they've twisted it into.
Well, they tried for 600 years.
They tried, but I think they'd have had to have destroyed every building and everyone, which they did try. But I think they got to a point where they realised
World War, maybe not in the Inquisition, but in World War I and II, they did quite a lot of damage. That's why it was actually orchestrated, to be honest, from my personal opinion. The carpet bombings, the things I've seen on maps. The war was basically for that. It wasn't just to cull and annihilate certain Aboriginals and all of that, which is something that I would love to attach this to in terms of belief system, is how the Aboriginals lived, where they could eat off the land, live a life of peace, They didn't have to fight against each other. They didn't need money. Now, if you can't control the food, you can't control you can't control the people due to food. You can't control them through the aspects of money. You can't control them through an aspect of belief. So what do? You create a circumstance where you can control all of it. From religion was the forefront of how certain monarchs were taken over. Like, think of kings and popes when they started merging. This is also when a lot of this started beginning, is because of these figures like these popes. I mean, I don't think I've heard of a pope in the times of the millennial era. Just to be honest with you, I don't think there's even one in maybe the graphs that you've read that is within the millennial era, unless they were switched over from St. Peter.
There is definitely, yeah, I mean, there's documented popes pre-1066, definitely, but
from 1066.
From before. So, I mean, I just started my list from 1999, 999, and that was Sylvester II, who was the first French pope. But I think they would probably use the structures that were in place and just flip them.
That is why I mentioned Mary. Why they're using Mary?
Yeah.
They just, like you have seen with Christianity being changed over and moderated through the ages, like gay marriage. That was never a thing even back in the day. They would have, that would have been just absolutely, they would not have liked that. In the beginning,
Mary, isn't it?
Say again?
Mary, marriage. They just add, they twist it on.
Like, even the English language is inverted. If you think of the entire world that way now, that is how we are living, a complete different contrast to what the millennial era was about. If you think about it, the Star of David, just a quick one. It's not even, that the Star of David was never actually attributed to him in any of the religious texts. You know why? Because it's affiliated to King Solomon, not to David. That is King Solomon's seal, which was attached in religious texts by a banner, a star being on a banner, that it had nothing to do with David. This was how King Solomon controlled these entities, these 72 and their cronies, their legions. This is why some people might get confused, because they think of the 300 fallen or the 200 fallen. It depends on what aspect you're looking at them, because there's 72 heads and 7 above them. They control the 72. Obviously, they're within the 72. But each one of those have legions. And if you probably add them up, it comes probably to about 300. And those are the ones that are loosed. I would say they aren't physically here, but they can, depending how far your soul is attached from purity, meaning, if you going too much into alcohol and that type of stuff, you're not really there. If you're getting really wasted and you get to this point where you're like, I can't remember what I did yesterday. That is when they start attaching to you, or when you start doing anything that is against creation itself, killing, you name it. I think that attaches itself. It basically breaks your soul to a point of non-purity, and these entities can start playing with you in some sort of way, or incarnating in you for a certain amount of time. but that is hearsay, who knows. But it is very, very easy to see if you go into the Inquisitions, their ways of fighting, when wars began, what they did to people compared to this Hellenistic peaceful era where aboriginals, which make us think like they're barbarous people, but they have such wonderful lives of peace and good food, pure water that isn't recycled and all of that, that I'm probably not going to go into right now. But water, if you can control the water, like the Spanish Inquisition did to the Mayans, if you can basically put something in the water which is probably contributed to fluoride, chlorine, low, that's not, none of those chemicals are good for you. The water is no longer life-giving because it has no minerals. You continuously using water and so on that's not good for you. It's not going through the filtration system of the earth or anything like that. It is recycled water, dead, and you are what you consume. So eventually, it breaks down the civilization and the colonization that we are in from every single country, basically. Unless you're living, out in the middle of nowhere where people think they're actually struggling, but they're actually living really good lives. I don't. Did you want to go more down onto what the Albigensian Crusade was getting up to and their affiliation maybe to certain kings and how they started taking things over from there? Because if I put it into context of the millennial era, okay, if it ended at 1066, okay, and the Crusades lasted 600 years, that would put us in 1666, okay? Why do you think that time is called the Dark Era? Because they want it to be dark. They don't want you to actually know what was going on in that time. Whereas researchers think, okay, they added time. If you think about how long it took them to take down what is now the world we live in, by means of peace and all of that, to destroy all of that and take complete control of our belief system through what you would call the new form of Catholic Christianity. If you can even see how the Roman Catholics changed it and diversified the religion into so many different sects that we have now, it's very easy for you to see how they did it from the time of Mary and the Cathars up until the point we have now, and have broken it into the worst belief system you can think of. If you think of it in terms of what we have now, fearing in things. If you don't do this, this will happen.
Yeah.
Where back in that time, you knew what was wrong and right. Through your parenting, through your upbringing, your lessons in life. It's so basic and easy to see how our belief system was changed from the millennial era.
It's also fractured just the general what the millennial era was from what we are now, because it's associated with these crusades, and that's what turns off so many people who would follow what the proper teachings are, not the Catholic Church twisting of it. There's so many people that would follow if they knew what the real lifestyle was and the real teachings, and they fractured that history by putting this chunk of brutality right in the middle, and then there's slavery and all the other things that they can tie all into this of like, actually Christendom's really evil. It was, Commonwealth taking over the world, the Commonwealth was evil, and they treated everyone badly, and then the Crusaders came in the name of Christianity and killed everyone. And it's fractured all of what the reality was from that time. And then you've got the reset after that, they burnt everything down, then all the wars, the world wars.
Probably from 1066 and up, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
1666 and up, yeah.
And the dissolution of the monasteries, it wasn't a dissolution of the monasteries here. There's literally barely stone standing in most of the important ones. Glastonbury was where the wealthiest monastery in England was Glastonbury, and that abbot was taken up on the tour and hung, drawn, and quartered. I mean, this wasn't just a dissolution; it was an utter annihilation of all that history. And they rebuilt.
And just a quick one. If they're people of peace, okay, and you bring in war and all of that, just think about this quickly. If your belief system is close to the Cathars, they believed in peace, they didn't believe in war and hurting things. Just imagine how easy it would be to take that over with war. They're not going to do much to defend themselves because it's against their belief.
Yeah.
It's against their way of life. That is how I think they made this so easy, until certain figures started popping up and going against them. If you get what I mean. This is why I think when this started, I mean, for them to take out that amount of people from the Albisengian Crusade, to take out so many people so quickly.
20,000 in a day.
From 1209 through Pope Innocent III. And he just, I'm against the Cathars in the south of France. They were coming from the west of France. And they just decided, okay, well, it was Béziers, Beziers, okay? This is where they rounded up the 222 Cathars, okay? Which was apparently attributed very closely with Mary Magdalene and the priestesses. Now, when they didn't want to do that, they just annihilated all of them, everyone, which resulted to around, they just took it all out, over 20,000 of it, which you mentioned in the beginning.
And they did that on July 22nd.
Wow.
Just as another kick in the teeth. And then in 1244, so that the Cathars had Montségur in the Pyrenees as well. That was a big base of theirs. That was effectively their stronghold, their spiritual capital. So they still held that until 1244. They put a 10-month siege on that mount, and 200 of they call them perfecti, that's that kind of their priests, were burnt alive on a mass pyre that day. So some think esoterically recently that they potentially escaped with some treasures, some that day, but that was 200 again burnt alive after a 10-month siege. This wasn't just a one-off.
You know, the Pope also sacked Constantinople. Apparently it was against his orders to do so, but he sacked Constantinople. He sacked it. And that was apparently part of the Byzantine Empire, if I'm not mistaken. It didn't have much to do with Rome. And then they rebuilt it, and they say in history that it was still part of the Byzantine Empire, which I doubt, because Constantinople was probably overtaken by the Romans by then. Also through this Pope.
There's interesting links with Rennes-le-Château. So a lot of people, when you talk about anything to do with Mary Magdalene, they just dismiss it as Da Vinci Code stuff. The Da Vinci Code doesn't even touch on any of this. It's just a surface level fan fiction, links in Rosslyn Chapel, fine. But when you put the Rennes-le-Château element, which is where the Cathars were, had sanctuary in the Rennes-le-Château area, and all the links from there.
Including burning 7,000 of them in that castle.
But what's interesting is they've even presented the Templars as the ones that are protecting the Holy Grail. And it's just
we're burning it down.
the double. Oh, yeah, they had 1,000 years to prepare all this, so you can see why it's a clever twist.
I don't think they had 1,000 years to plan it. I think because of the entities that are involved, after they found this flask. And just by the way, the 68th spirit, Belial, was created after Lucifer, that was in this brass container that King Solomon had put them in. He's depicted as two beautiful angels sitting in a chariot of fire. You know the song Chariot of Fire?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. Anyway, he governed, or this entity governed, 50 legions of spirits. So this is why I was mentioning. Yes, they mention 72, but they don't mention their legions. The legions are added on.
It's interesting that 72
now Belial
as well.
Yeah, as above as below. Now, what's interesting is the Red Cross is affiliated to Belial, which is why I'm trying to piece this together along with the Crusades with that and the Inquisitions to that cross, because that's the cross that was brought everywhere.
Yeah.
Not only that, this flask was hidden for 1,000 years, being the millennial reign. So I don't know if King Solomon locked them up there from the first BC or something like that, very close to where they said Jesus was born, which is 30, either the fourth, somewhere around 4 BC to 33 BC, or something like that. It's in that area, depending on your cross section of belief, if we put it that way, because if you put it in religious texts, it can get very confusing. Now, because that was hidden for 1,000 years, okay, if King Solomon hid that, because I just made this like really weird breadcrumb in my brain right now, if that was already hidden for 1,000 years, that means King Solomon did this over 2,025 years ago. This was when religion began, 1 BC. When he had hidden this thing at the bottom or somewhere in the abyss of Babylon or Mount Sodom, at the bottom of Mount Sodom, whether there's a huge pit there or whatever it is, I don't know. I've never been there, but that is apparently where they found it. If you think about it, the millennial era lasted 1,000 years. So maybe this was the beginning of when that thing was hidden there with all the spirits locked up. Who knows what happened before that, before 1 BC. But that means King Solomon hid that there, 1 BC. If his texts are correct and they didn't blasphemize it. But it makes sense.
To be in what was his era? When was the temple built? In BC.
When was it built? I can tell you, I've got a 125-year-old story here. Hopefully it does. It is called the Construction of Babylon. Let me just see if I can find it. It's going to give me a sec. So if you want to carry on, oh, there it is. Okay, Babylon. Charles, a story about Charles Rowland in 406. Page 406, sorry. Yeah, my mind is on a lot of things.
I know, well, I'm just reading
it's
here.
Such a beautiful story.
In this book, this is the Templar book that I've got, which is saying Manly P. Hall, who wrote The Secret Teachings of All Ages.
Of all the ages.
Writes, medieval alchemists were convinced that Solomon understood the secret process of Hermes, by means of which it was possible to multiply metal. And this could be one of the factors of having great wisdom. Yep.
And he also took most of the wisdom in divine Paramander and all that. And I think Hermes is going. The reason why I'm leaving Hermes out of this video is because we can attach him to just about everything. But later on, maybe we can get this video pushed out due to Mary Magdalene and her way of life, and hopefully not get it flagged too highly. And then I can push in Hermes and see how that goes, because just the context of the 1599 Geneva Bible and the footnotes, also what you've been finding, I've been having a lot of issues with it. Posting it online, getting word out, it just does not go very far. And I've got, not speaking in egotistical or vain forms, but a lot of people that I'm affiliated with in terms of research, they say it's highly flagged, that it's not something that is that they generally speak about. So hopefully we can get this out. It is very important, and I think it is.
And the only one taken down for community violations was just that. And then suddenly across Europe, the website's banned. The best website to access it.
Okay, this doesn't say when it was built, but every side of this great square were 25 gates. That is 100. That is 100 in all. So it's 25 gates and 100 in all on each side. So it almost sounds like it was almost. I'm thinking it looked like the Star of David, but I'm probably wrong.
That's interesting. So they said it was completed in 957 BCE or BC.
They said it was completed in 957.
BC, yeah.
BC.
Mm. So effectively 1,000.
That was probably the time of. That was probably the time of King Solomon.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is distorted in the information religiously.
Yeah.
If you add King Solomon.
931 BCE.
31. 931.
931.
Okay, so when did religion begin? 1 BC. Around about, yeah? So they say. He died before that. But he is written in the context of being in the Bible and doing all these things. How is that possible? Okay, so it said here, which were all made of solid brass. Okay, remember the container for the souls that King Solomon pushed them in there with was made of brass. And hence it is that when God promised to Cyrus the conquest of Babylon, he tells him that he should break in pieces before him the gate of brass. Oh, wow. look, I don't know if this actual structure itself was the vase, but this is pretty interesting that the gates are brass and that God told him to break it. Between every two of these gates were 3 towers and 4 more at the 4 corners of this great square. Okay, so it was a square. And 3 between each of these corners, and the next gate on either side. Every one of these towers was 10 feet higher than the walls. Wow, this is huge.
Temple. Can you see the
25
temple?
gates on each side, yeah. So it was basically a temple. Yeah, I think that is maybe what it would look like, but
That's an impression
very
of
interesting.
and the temple in Italy, made in Italy.
Okay. Do you see any rivers there? Do you see any rivers around that temple? Do you see one? Do you see any rivers around that building?
No.
Okay, here it says in a book from 1850 to 1899, the International Library of Famous Literature, it states here, the quays and bridge, okay? A branch of the river Euphrates ran across the city. You don't see a river. Okay, and it says here, from the north to the south side, on each side of the river was a quay and a high wall built in brick and bitumen of the same thickness as the walls that went round the city. There's no round walls around there on that building that you just showed me. I don't see any rivers unless they're hidden in between the trees, which is pretty interesting because then they're not really very big rivers. You know how big a branch from the Euphrates could have been quite big. There's no waterway there. Doesn't the I'm not saying that the image isn't credible. I'm just saying the description of Babylon and that building, they don't look very convincing. It's that or this book is wrong. I don't know. But yeah,
It
it doesn't.
seems to be the base. What this is definitely the base of where the Templars were. That's where they.
Of course, it's also how they poisoned the water to these systems going to all the other countries around it, including the Nile and Egypt.
And this got converted into a mosque in 1104.
Oh, go figure. It's very interesting. But yes, we should definitely go from Crusade to Crusade and see from here what they were getting up to, how awesome their religion was, and what they were pushing, and everyone that they were nailing, and we will think to ourselves, okay, well, is this the religion we want? Is this what we would want to accept? I'm not telling people what to believe. You can definitely go down history road the same way that we are doing it, and you can try and picture these barbaric type of popes and their ways into flowers and frame it that way if you want, but I don't know. It doesn't quite sit with me. I mean, I've watched lots of movies. I've read lots and lots of literature. I'm not saying I'm incredibly wise or whatever the case is, but I've got to be pretty idle-minded and ignorant to accept that these inquisitions were there to do good things on peaceful people.
It's very interesting. So yeah, I think we're going to start doing our own kind of timeline and figuring out how this all links up.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to have an easier way on that route, thanks to a lot of the information that you've got. Makes it a lot easier, a lot less for me to look up. I just have to go down the age gauge and see what this guy did and see what that dude did. And I can tell you now, on peaceful people, it probably wasn't very good.
And that's not even starting to think about why the inside of the Vatican looks like a reptile and all the things that they've done in the
what the popes do behind closed doors, what they generally are associated with. It's rough, yeah, to say the least.
This all kicked off this year when the Pope died, for me anyway. A lot of this, and that Easter Sunday, wasn't it?
Well, if you were watching him in his wheelchair, here's a very interesting video you might want to see that I don't know if you've watched. He was sitting in his wheelchair, and they opened those great doors, which is actually attributed to a seal, by the way. They opened that door, and there was a man standing there that opened it. He was already inside. Okay, remember, they don't open these doors for a very long time. How on earth did the guy get inside? Like, what is this? Like some secret path where you can just walk through and just like, hello, I'm here. Let me open the door for you from the inside. The guy had no ears. He was like gone. No, he had no ears in this black form, bald head, no hair, no hair. Very easy for you to see if he has ears. And the Pope's expression was as if all of the things that he had done in his life had smacked him right between the eyes, and he knew where he was going. Look carefully. People just watch things idly. You need some discernment in these times. I mean, you have so many, your belief system and the things that you carry forward are so anchored to these figures. And people just sit and they just watch it like nothing's like really going on. You need to watch. Keep your, like, really, there's some very interesting things that are going on television lately, and I try not to watch any of it, but that was really bizarre. I couldn't believe it.
They opened something at Christmas, didn't they? Opened some kind of crypt or something.
Yeah, St. Peter's crypt. I don't know if I want to say much about that, but if you are this religious sect, okay, you're a religious sect, you don't disturb the dead. Just from my understanding of how things are supposed to be kept, you don't disturb the dead. What do they go do? Look, if you're creating war paths to create change in this world and all of that as a Christian sect, and you want to come and tell me that you have something good to do in this world, and then still show me that type of stuff, which is like a continuous domino effect of bad, 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 bad. Every time the one hits the other one, you get this echo of bad coming from it. There's nothing good. They're not feeding the poor. They're not doing nothing other than looking after themselves, looking after their cronies. What's the richest organization that you know of in this world other than a corporate entity, other than the Vatican, if you think about it? Yet they don't feed the poor. They don't help create jobs. They don't. What's pure about that? Where's the purity? Am I seeing things? Am I delusional in my life that I'm missing this stuff? No problem. I must be missing something. Like, definitely, that's yeah, I don't understand how people just can't just see and, you know, go forward to the form of life that you want to live. Like, really, you don't need secrets from presidents and all of that type of stuff for you to figure out that the world's against you. The narrative, not the people in general, the ones up there, like the so-called holy ones that are, you know what I mean, in religious forms. If they're not feeding the poor and they're just doing all of these gruesome things, you really think they care about you? I don't think so.
Mm.
But yeah.
Well, I think it's very interesting, and I think there's a lot to dig into. We've got our work cut out, and we will.
It's going to be easy and pleasurable.
So yeah, I think we'll leave that one here as a kind of intro to this, and we will hopefully see you soon.
Definitely. It was nice being here. Thank you for your wisdom.
Yours too. Take care.
You too.